Every point at the Ryder Cup counts the same, but how you get those points tells you everything about the two teams. Today, we're going to unpack why captain selections, the wild cards, have become one of the single biggest levers in the Ryder Cup, and why Europe has consistently squeezed more out of those spots than the United States. I'll show you what the data says, how the selection rules changed, and what it all means for Bethpage in 2025. If you've never watched the Ryder Cup, here's the quickest way to get up to speed. Each team brings 12 players. Some players qualify automatically based on a points race. Think of that as earning your spot through your play on the course. But the rest of the roster is chosen by the captain. Those are called captain's picks or wild cards. The exact number of captain's picks has changed over the years, but the idea never does. Picks give the captain flexibility to build the right 12 for a specific course, opponent, and format, not just the 12 who ranked the highest. And they matter a lot. Because the Ryder Cup is match play, foursomes, and four-ball for 2 days, then singles on Sunday. That means pairings, course fit, current form, and even locker room chemistry can be worth as much as a raw stroke play resume. Captains don't make those decisions alone. They lean on vice captains, analytics, and input from established players. The goal is to pick the golfers who unlock the most pairings and score the most points in this very specific format. It's not just the biggest names. Okay, refresher complete. Now, let's look at how each side has used those picks and why one team has been better at turning them into points. Since 2016, qualified players have scored the vast majority of total points in the Ryder Cup, accounting for nearly 70% of all the points earned. However, that metric alone doesn't tell the whole story, since qualified players have often taken up more than half the roster spots and they tend to play in more matches. The metric to level the playing field is percentage of possible points. This shows how effective each player is at collecting available points. When you look at it this way, Europe has significantly outperformed the United States in the effectiveness of their wild cards. European wild cards have earned 52% of all possible points compared to only 40% for the United States wild cards. If you isolate only the last 3 editions, the gap grows even bigger, with Europe's wildcards winning 54.5% of all possible points compared to only 36% for the US wildcards. The success of European wildcards has gotten so good that these selections are even outperforming the team's automatic qualifiers, something that would be unheard of on the American side. So basically, Europe's captains have generally picked players who produce at least as well as their automatic qualifiers. US captains, on average, have not. So why has Europe been better? 3 big reasons keep showing up in the record. Europe embraced analytics earlier and more visibly than the Americans. Paul McGinley's 2014 plan famously mined a decade of performance at Glen Eagles to isolate skills that mattered, like big hitting and par 5 scoring, to inform both the selections and the pairings. By 2018, Thomas Bjorn had an analytics team embedded with the squad to support opponent scouting, course fit, and pairings. The US had its own analytics advisors as well, but the European side's integration with captains and vice captains aligned is often credited as the differentiator. Bjorn said the quiet part out loud after Europe's 2018 win in Paris. Asked the Monday after the matches why Europe won, his first answer was the picks. He leaned on experience and chemistry, going with Sergio Garcia, Ian Poulter, Henrik Stenson, and Paul Casey in a foursomes-heavy setup, and they delivered, going 9-4-1, picking up 9.5 of the 17.5 team points scored that week. Europe's captaincy tree and vice captain core tend to carry institutional memory from one cup to the next. The same voices are in the room, refining how they evaluate fit under pressure and in tough crowds. You see that again in 2025 with Luke Donald back as captain, keeping a seasoned vice captains group and leading a team that is nearly identical to the 2023 winning squad. On the other hand, the United States historically has used picks for more intangibles or upside, and it hasn't always cashed. In 2023, Zach Johnson sent shockwaves through the golf community by leaving Keegan Bradley off the U.S. Ryder Cup team and selecting a struggling Justin Thomas, who Johnson called, quote, the heart and soul of Team USA and the emotional leader. Thomas would go 1-2-1 in Rome, earning only 1.5 points for Team USA. Even worse for Captain Johnson, that was one of the best wildcard performances that his selections had. ZJ's 6 captain's picks would go a combined 4, 12, and 4 for the week, earning just 6 total points. Contrast that with Luke Donald's selections going 8, 9, and 3, who even with a losing record picked up 3.5 points more than Johnson's picks. Donald has often pledged his loyalty to cohesion, something that he will lean on heavily in a hostile road game at Bethpage Black. There's clearly a gap between each team's wildcard selections, and that gap might be getting bigger. The qualification structures have changed over the years, which has given more selections to both captains while limiting the number of players who automatically qualify. Since 2021, the United States has locked in 6 automatic qualifiers from a points list and then filled the remaining 6 with captain's picks, a structure that will stay in place for 2025. The Europeans selected 6 golfers for the first time in 2023, and they have again in 2025, but they almost have always left a larger chunk of their team up to the rankings list. As recently as 2021, Europe only gave out 3 captain selections, while the United States doubled that and picked 6. Now, half of both rosters are being filled by the captain and vice captains, so having an edge in that department is making a significant difference in the final standings. Over the last 3 Ryder Cups, the average European wildcard has been worth 1.85 points to the final standings, while the average United States wildcard is earning just 1.12 points. That's nearly 3/4 of a full point. Across 6 selections, Europe's wildcards are worth 4.5 more points than their counterparts. The ability to hand choose half the team has been invaluable to the Europeans. Team Europe has once again leaned into continuity for 2025. That starts with bringing back captain Luke Donald after his victory in Rome, making him the first European to captain consecutive Ryder Cups in 30 years. Donald's team room will look nearly identical as he returns 4 of his 5 team captains and 11 of his 12 players. The only difference in the European roster is that Rasmus Højgaard is replacing his twin brother, Nicolai Højgaard. American captain Keegan Bradley was brought in to shake things up from a disastrous week in Rome. Bradley passed on selecting himself and opted again for Ryder Cup experience. His selections of Justin Thomas, Colin Morikawa, Patrick Cantlay, and Sam Burns have played a combined 32 matches in the Ryder Cup. They'll be flanked by 2 rookies in Cameron Young and Ben Griffin. If you want to predict the Ryder Cup, stop counting world ranking points and start counting decisions. With 6 captains' picks on both sides, we're talking about a third of each team's production coming from players chosen by feel, by fit, by data, or by all 3. Europe's advantage has been turning those picks into role players who could score like starters. The United States can absolutely match that. They did it in 2021, but it requires ruthless clarity on course fit and pairings, not just resumes. At Bethpage, with 6 picks on both benches, captaincy is once again the quiet decider.